Hi, welcome to my web seminar on free agency. So you want to learn about free agency in the NFL? Were you interested in free agency? Do you want to know everything about the NFL? Do you want to wow your friends with the knowledge regarding free agency? Well, this website is for you. This web seminar is for you. In it, we will discuss free agency, the first case on it, the Radovich decision, the Mackey decision, the Powell decision, the McNeil decision, and more. So let's get started on free agency in the NFL, shall we? I'm reading from note cards, so if I'm looking down, it's because I'm reading. That's why I can get this. That's so I can get you the right information, so you know everything about free agency. Free agency in the NFL means a player can freely market his resume to the highest bidder. Right now, a player is bound to one team for a period of 4 years before he can become a free agent. The average lifespan of a player in the pro NFL is 4 years, so that means he can never become a free agent in the NFL. That's a problem for an average player. So free agency is the right to freely market a player's service to the highest bidder. And right now, as of 2017, players don't have that right. As we can go out and market our resume to the highest bidder, they cannot market their resume in NFL to the highest bidder. They have to go with the team that they were drafted to, and they go there a period of 4 years. Like I said, the average player lasts 4 years, so that doesn't do much good for the players having free agency after 4 years. It's something to think about. We didn't know that until we went to the seminar. So now with that in mind, let's dive into the case law regarding free agency, shall we? The first case regarding free agency in the NFL is the Radovich decision. The Radovich decision was decided in 1957 by the Supreme Court. It gave the players standing to sue for antitrust violations in the NFL, for antitrust violations against the NFL in the court system. That was known as the Radovich decision. It held that a player can sue the NFL in the court system for violations of antitrust law. Something interesting to know. In baseball, prior to the Radovich decision, the MLB is exempt from antitrust laws by the Supreme Court decisions. See the federal baseball case and the Toulson decision. These decisions say that it's okay for the MLB baseball to be exempt from antitrust laws. This exemption, however, did not apply to the NFL. That was decided by the Supreme Court in 1957 with the Radovich decision. Before I go on, you're probably wondering what antitrust is. What is antitrust? So let me explain that to you rather quickly so we can go forward and you can know about antitrust, so you can know a little bit more about what we're talking about when we say that they sue for antitrust violations. A trust is an agreement between two parties not to compete. So antitrust prohibits such agreements. So if you have agreement between two parties not to compete, in antitrust, that's against the law. And that's so we can foster a competitive environment in the corporate America. It's a very big law, and it's very fascinating, and it takes a long time to go over, which I'll go over in another webinar, but we're not going to go through that today. So antitrust makes it a violation to have an agreement between two parties not to compete. For example, the NFL has an agreement between parties not to compete for player services. That agreement is found to be invalid under antitrust laws. So when it gets before the laws, it's always been struck as invalid, the restraints on free agency. The key is getting it in front of the antitrust law system, which is the problem that you'll run into with Powell case, and we will discuss later. So the aforementioned Mackey decision, see the aforementioned Mackey decision and the McNeil decision for more on the antitrust law stuff. Back to the case law. The next big case regarding free agency in the NFL after the Radovich decision is the Mackey decision. That is one that discusses antitrust, which is one of two. McNeil also goes into antitrust that we will be talking about in this webinar. That case was decided in 1973 after a failed contract negotiation led to a court case called the Mackey decision. In the Mackey decision, players sued the NFL for a violation of antitrust laws regarding what was called the Pete Rozelle rule. The Pete Rozelle rule allows teams to get competition from a new team, get compensation from a new team when a new team buys a player from the old team. This is called the Pete Rozelle rule. In the Mackey case, the Pete Rozelle rule was found to be illegal by the Court of Appeals and struck as an illegal provision under the antitrust law. So see, when the NFL Players Association has gotten their case in front of the court system on antitrust law, they always tend to win. That's what's very important about the antitrust law case. Just as a side note, Pete Rozelle used to be the commissioner of the NFL. That's who he is, so you know who Pete Rozelle is. Hence the name, the Pete Rozelle rule. The court found for the players and gave the players the right to treble damages as a result of these antitrust violations. This was called the Mackey decision. Treble damages means that they get triple the damages amount back, and that is what is standard in antitrust law. After the Mackey decision, the NFL paid the players a boatload of money to settle the case. See the Reynolds class action decision. That's where they paid a boatload of money to settle the case, and the collective bargaining agreement and settlement in 1975, where more money was given to settle the case of the Mackey decision. So they had to shell out a lot of money to be free of this Mackey violation. And after that, they included a provision in the new collective bargaining agreement clarifying the right of first refusal compensation system in the NFL. The collective bargaining agreement is an agreement between companies and the union on wages, hours, and terms of conditions of employment. That's called a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement. The first right of refusal compensation system is discussed later in the seminar, in this webinar. That came out of the contract negotiations and was now incorporated into the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. The next big case is the Powell decision of 1988. You get better placed here. In between Powell and Mackey was a little case called CAP. That again gave the players the right to sue for antitrust violations in the court system. That was called the CAP decision. Not only gave the player the right to sue for player restraints, but also declared the draft to be illegal in antitrust scrutiny. That's an interesting side note. CAP lost the case, but the case did say that they could sue for draft violations in antitrust law, which was very interesting. Now we jump to the next big case called the Powell decision. The case was decided in 1988 and ruled in favor of the NFL. They won a case, believe it or not. The NFL actually won one case in this whole long 50-year battle of the Titans. In the Powell case, players now sued the NFL for the right of first refusal compensation system. They were mad with that system and they sued the NFL for it. This was the replacement provision agreed upon to settle by both parties, players and management in the NFL in 1972. The right of first refusal compensation system gave management, the NFL, the right to refuse a contract settlement between a player and a new team, or the old former team got compensation from the new team to a player. That was called the right of first refusal compensation system. In the Powell case, the players sued the NFL for this system after a failed contract negotiation and a strike occurred regarding free agency. In this case, however, the court system ruled in favor of the NFL over the players. The court ruled that these restraints in question, the right of first refusal system in the NFL, and the right of first refusal system and compensation system, was protected by what was called a non-statutory labor exemption. That's something new, non-statutory labor exemption to the antitrust laws. This exemption applies to parties where the restraint is A, a topic of mandatory bargaining by the union management, B, an agreement that only affects the parties involved in the contract, and C, is a bona fide topic of an arm's length negotiation. This is called the Powell decision. Thus, since the right of first refusal compensation system was agreed to by both parties and only affected both the NFLPA and the players, the NFL, and was deemed a mandatory subject of collective bargaining by the court system, the restraint was therefore exempt by the non-statutory labor exemption to the antitrust laws. So therefore, in the Powell case, the NFL won the Battle of the Titans, and the right of first refusal was exempt from antitrust scrutiny, so they didn't go to court on antitrust in that case. The NFL won the case. This was different from the Mackey decision because the court system found that in the Mackey case, the union did not negotiate the Roselle rule. It was unilaterally applied. It was unilaterally implemented by the company NFL. Whereas in the Powell case, the right of first refusal compensation system was now negotiated by the union in good faith in 1975 with management. Thus, the NFL won the Powell case. Not to be outdone, however, the NFL Players Association soon decertified themselves, a very big move in the NFL. The NFL Players Association decertified themselves, and the players went solo. Soon the NFL management for violations of antitrust laws solo as independent players absent a union. A phenomenal move on behalf of the Players Association. Phenomenal move. It was fantastic. The decertification means that players voted the union out of their collective bargaining representative. Thus, the players went solo without a players' union. This was known as the McNeil decision. Became known as the McNeil decision of 1993. In that decision, the court ruled in favor of the players for treble damages, and it was against the NFL. So the NFL lost again. 8 players sued the NFL in the Freeman-McNeil case in 1993. The court decided by a jury vote. They decided with a jury this time. The last time they decided in the Court of Appeals by judge, this was decided by jury, that the right of first refusal compensation system was a violation of antitrust laws. So there again, the NFL lost the case. And the players were awarded treble damages. That once again means 3 times damages for their complaint. The McNeil case was a phenomenal decision that paved the way to a contract settlement after 5 years in limbo that started with a strike on behalf of the players that failed and went to the court system with the Powell case and then climaxed into the McNeil decision. 5 years later, a contract settlement evolved between the union and management, and the NFLPA was recertified and therefore ended the McNeil decision. The Jackson decision came out of that decision, whereby 4 players were given the right to total free agency in the NFL. Total free agency came out of that case for 4 players. That's why the NFL knew they were in trouble. Another case came out of it, the Reggie White class action settlement in 1984, which gave the players $230 million in a contract settlement case. $230 million in a court case to settle the case that directly resulted from McNeil. That's where the NFL knew they were in trouble and they had to fix the case, so they settled the contract. So these big cases to date, the Radovich decision, which gave the player the right to sue for damages and antitrust in the court system, the Mackey decision, which the players won, the Powell decision, which the NFL won, and the McNeil decision, which the players won. These cases all amounted to a big and major NFL party. And at the cost of millions and millions of dollars to the taxpayer, the public, and to everyone fighting these cases. After that case resolved, the contract settled and was okay until 2012. In 2012, Tom Brady from the New England Patriots filed a lawsuit against the NFL, claiming once again antitrust violations. That case, however, was settled with the contract agreement of 2012 and the contract negotiation for money and a new provision for free agency, which now grants free agency after 4 years for NFL players. So Brady is the same player that got charged with Deflategate in 2015. After footballs were deflated for the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. Brady was the NFL quarterback and he got charged with the offense, which leads me to wonder whether he got charged in retaliation to his 212 case or not. That's a good question, and it's one that should be answered by the court system, quite frankly, because it's very possible that it was retaliation because he filed the 212 case. Doesn't look good for the NFL in that case. The Brady case settled out of court in the contract negotiations for money and new terms of the agreement and the collective bargaining agreement regarding free agency. It's hard to say where it'll go from there. So long as there is not free agency, the players will continue to sue. The next contract is due to expire in 2022. We'll see what happens then. Until then, I'm signing off. It was nice to talk to you today. Thank you for attending my free web seminar regarding free agency. I hope you learned a lot and can wow your friends with the new knowledge you've gotten on free agency. Have a great day, and it was nice to talk to you today. Thank you. Goodbye.